twins are in the building for off-season workouts. The headline is Lamar Jackson's there. And wait until you hear what Kyle Hamilton had to say about the defense. Plus, we're just 2 weeks away from the draft. Should the Bears, Commanders, and Panthers be in search of playmakers for their young quarterbacks? We have some answers there, and there's nothing more exciting than a draft night trade. We have some possibilities, and one of them actually includes Max Crosby. Stick around to hear what our experts think, and boy, experts is the operative word. We have the brain trust here today. I'm Hannah Storm, along with Kevin Clark, Bill Barnwell, and Mina Kimes. I mean, how did we get so lucky, people? We're all going to be smarter after this hour. This is new on NFL Live. Miami edge rusher Rueben Bain is visiting with the Chiefs today. Kansas City holds the number 9 pick and has done work on all of the top pass rushers. Bell Kuiper has Bain going there in his latest mock. So, Mina, why don't you kick it off for us today on NFL Live? How do you like that fit, Bain and the Chiefs?
I love it. I think this would be a dream outcome for Kansas City, quite frankly, in part because they really need pass rush. Last season, their highest-ranked edge rusher and pass rush win was George Karlaftis, who ranked 25th at the position. They need juice there as part of that four-man rush in particular, and juice is exactly what Rueben Bain Jr. brings to the table. His get-off is extremely explosive. He plays with violent hands. The way he converts speed to power is special. His motor also runs hot versus the run. And I think for Kansas City, he fits their timeline because this is a team that should be competitive every year, including next year, and he's a pro-ready player. I also like it when you look at the draft as a whole. They are picking later in the first round, and they have other needs, corner, wide receiver. I think that they are more likely to find an impactful receiver at the end of the first round than they are to find an edge rusher who's anywhere close to Bain. I think there's a pretty big drop-off after 3. So to me, this would be a dream pick for Kansas City, and they better be hoping it happens.
Yeah, landing one of those top 3 edge rushers would be fantastic. I'm intrigued to see how Steve Spagnuolo might use Rueben Bain, though, because of what the Chiefs have up front in Chris Jones. Chris Jones is a defensive tackle in name only. He does play a lot on the inside, but he can pick and choose his matchups on passing downs, and he loves to rush from outside. He's an edge rusher a fair amount of the time, and so that actually fits with what Rueben Bain might be as a pro defender. He can rush from the edge. There are those concerns about his arm length, which we've heard a billion times by now, but I do think he's going to have a stretch in the pros. He's going to be rushing from the interior, rushing against guards, where he can kind of translate that power quickly against maybe some shorter, or at the very least, guys who don't have those pro-length tackle arms. And so I think Rueben Bain could be a guy where they sort of flip the defense. You play Chris Jones on the outside sometimes on passing downs, move Rueben Bain inside. That could work with a four-man rush.
To me, the most important part of Rueben Bain's fit with the Chiefs is how many big games he excelled in. And that's why Mina mentioned it about the pro-ready type of player he is. I just look at this. He had, and I couldn't believe this stat, if you just take the pressures he had in the college football playoff, 23, and you put them in the ACC, he would have been, just the pressures he had in the playoff would have qualified him to be a top 20 rusher in the country. Okay, that is just unbelievable to me when you just think about what he was able to do against Ohio State, 9 pressures alone. What he was able to do against Notre Dame.
We really
I was going to say,
show this.
No, I was going to say, he understood how to set up Notre Dame to where he and Mesidor closed that game, won that game. He is a clutch pass rusher. That's a position we don't talk about having clutch traits or needing clutch traits. He was setting up that line all game for the last possession when C.J. Carr got mauled. I'm sorry, that's the only way to put it. He got mauled on that last possession. So
it is what it is.
What he was able to do against Texas A&M, Ohio State, Indiana, Ole Miss, he's a big game player, and the Chiefs need that because week 1, they're going to need to hit the ground running.
Can I just say that about clutch? 25 quarterback pressures in the 4th quarter last season, so that was the most in FBS. All right, we've given him his flowers. He was great against Notre Dame. Let's move on. All right, 10 teams, new head coaches, starting off-season workouts this week. Really, it was the biggest story of the week, and it was at the start of the week. Lamar Jackson, he showed up on the first day of off-season activities, along with Derrick Henry and new addition Trey Hendrickson. A star safety, Kyle Hamilton, spoke about the expectations that their new head coach, Jesse Minter, has for the defense this season.
Him along with Coach Weaver, they've both done a great job so far, just kind of laying out what's been in the past and where we want to go in the future, and how the standard has not been met and upheld, and we need to kind of fix that.
Trey Hendrickson should be a big help to that pass rush. It was one of the worst in the NFL last season, and we're talking about the Ravens here, ranking 30th in pressure percentage. How about this? 31st in sack percentage, their lowest sack percentage since 2010. Bill, how can they get to the passer this season?
They have to fix things on the interior. One of the guys who was in the mix the prior 3 seasons when they were in the top 10 in sack rate in 22, 23, and 24 was Nnamdi Madubuike, who did not play very much last year after suffering a scary neck injury. They did just not have a replacement for him on the roster. They were 29th in pressure rate from their defensive tackles without him for most of last season. We don't know if he's going to play, and hopefully he's able to come back and be the guy he was in years past. But the Ravens could look towards maybe some help on the interior. Of course, they added Trey Hendrickson this offseason to play on the edge. But I think about someone like Texas A&M tackle Tyler Onwuetum, who might be available on day 2 of the draft. You kind of have to balance that line between maybe we get Madubuike back, maybe we don't, but can we bring in somebody who is going to be a supplement on the interior? Maybe we don't have to blitz as often. Maybe that makes the secondary's life easier. Ravens have to be able to win without blitzing because Jesse Minter wants to keep those guys in coverage and working on the back end.
Bill makes a great point about Madubuike. You know, whether or not he returns is kind of one of the big stories of the NFL offseason that's flying under the radar. And it's one of those things where when you watch the draft, you learn more about the team's intentions and their existing roster, because if they don't take a defensive tackle, perhaps it'll signal that there's some comfort in Baltimore that their star interior rusher will return. But there are other needs on this defense quietly that have amassed over the years. Linebacker, I would say, is one, and then pressingly, I would add cornerback. Nate Wiggins has become a true star, but opposite him, you got Chido Awuzie, who came back, or they signed this offseason, and you know, I think that's a position that they could look to upgrade, especially with Marlon Humphrey aging. You know, he's their nickel. Safety, they're set, but it's easy to imagine if they don't upgrade at corner, that being a position that teams go after, as they did at times last year.
Life moves very fast when you're talking about NFL rosters, because this time last year, I think we all would have agreed that the Ravens had, if not the best roster, a top 5 roster.
Right up there with the Eagles. That's
Absolutely.
what we were saying.
Coming into this saying, where are their flaws? They're going to the Super Bowl, all that. And then Mina just detailed it. They've got holes at basically every level. And Trey Hendrickson is not going to solve everything for them, nor would Max Crosby. It would have been a great addition if he was able to come on, but they've still got holes. I talked to Jesse Minter last week at the owners' meetings. He pointed to Malachi Starks. He's a second-year safety out of Georgia. I felt like last year Starks was going to be able to free up Kyle Hamilton to be the best player in football. He can play anywhere. If you look at his snap numbers, he's basically the only guy in football that's able to line up in a line of scrimmage and then almost linebacker and then safety in equal parts. Okay, he is unbelievable, and I think that if we start rushing the passer again in a more, and Hendrickson's going to help here, in a more efficient way, it's going to help that back end be more creative, and then Kyle Hamilton will be, at worst, a top 3 defensive player in this league this year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, their sack leader had, 5 sacks last season.
That's not Ravens football.
Very un-Ravens-like. I'll say they got to get back to their DNA. All right, coming up on NFL Live, we are just getting started here.